We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
G'day and welcome to another live recording of the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there is more than one way to be a man. Really, we're simplifying manhood and masculinity, aren't we, Boysen?
Nope, we are complicating ideas about manhood and masculinity.
See, that's where you and I disagree. See,
Correct.
Well, maybe it's because I like to speak in the layman's, Boysen.
And you're saying I'm a snob. Is that what...
No, I'm saying I'm a layman's. However you interpret that is your work.
Okay,
so
thanks.
That is your work. Okay. Well, why are we here today? And why do we have one new face and a popular one that we've had on the show previously in Mike. So I'll give you the spiel and then we'll get into it. So today we're going to explore how to integrate transformational experiences, whether you've been through a Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, or you're working through AA, or you've been through a new warrior training. We're going to explore ways in which to identify where you've been, what just happened in your transformation experience, and how to ensure that the changes, the transformation that occurred sticks. And making sure that you can continue this growth work when so many, sadly, will slip back into old behaviors, old identities,
Yes.
old habits, things that don't serve them. So we're going to talk about fears and blind spots and challenges that can trip you up, while also sharing practical tips to help you stay in the work, create new practices, and surround yourself with the right support. And the only way this conversation could be successful is to bring in experts in the room, experts that have stood front and center for thousands of transformational experiences. No, these guys are giants in this work. I can tell you that right now. And so first I want to introduce Mike Patterson, co-leader in the Mankind Project, 120 something new warrior trainings, like just big stuff. One of the most traveled leaders in MKP, most sought after, and I'm not blowing smoke. This man, he stood next to me when I got married, along with Boysen, one of my dearest friends, leaders, mentors, heroes. Glad to have you here, brother.
Thank you. I'm currently a leader trainer in the Mankind Project, been around for 20 years and done a bunch of things.
He has done a bunch of things.
In and outside of the project,
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I do professionally. I've worked in many different men's organizations, and happy to have this conversation because integration is really what matters.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And we're also joined by a newcomer to the show, Stephán McKenzie, also a co-leader in the project, and a man I haven't had a lot of time with. And I've heard your name ever since I got into the project. Your name has come up a lot. And so it's nice to finally have you with us. Tell us a bit about yourself and we'll dive in.
No, wait, me first.
Ooh, go ahead.
I've had conversations behind Stephán's back and heard from men who have taken programs that he has created for the Mankind Project that have had men stick around years and years and years because they recall those experiences, even in an online training with Stephán, and are like, that dude changed my life. There you go.
We get to cuss? Wow. Okay, awesome.
No, we do not. Boysen, no.
No, you do.
I know, because if you let Mike out of the bag, it's over.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great to be here and have this conversation. So important to me. Yes, I'm a co-leader currently in the Mankind Project. I've done things inside and outside of the project, from like Tony Robbins, all sorts of things, as well as I do a lot of volunteer work with children, everything from boys to men to comfort zone camp to homeless youth, GBTQ youth. So I've done a lot of work in that, a lot of grief work. Really speaks a lot to my heart in supporting the upcoming, not just the ones who are already ready to do work, but hopefully the ones that won't have to do as much work if they have a lot of, currently. And, I've done coaching work, small business coaching, individual coaching, all sorts of things like that. I've been very lucky to get a lot of healing and had a lot of help. So my mission is to make sure I pass that forward.
Beautiful. So there you have it. What a team we have here today to tackle this discussion and what we're going to prove. So for all of you listening out there who may feel like because of your age, because of your background, because of your race and all these different ways that we can identify differently, it may be easy to think that my circumstances mean I can only transform in one way. And what we're going to show you today, based on who we've brought to the table, is that the pen is in your hands. Right? You are writing the next chapters of your life, and from transforming the lives of young children all the way to, we've had men go through this weekend in their late 80s. Right?
Yes.
Transformation is still possible for each and every one of you. And so the way we're going to frame this is to invite you to think back to whatever transformational experience you've just had, whether it was a new warrior training, whether it was, a Tony Robbins training, whatever it was, something clicked, something changed. But before we dive into that, let's look at where you were before all of this. Who was the person, the habits, the behaviors, how you showed up professionally, personally, in relationships? It's really important to get an understanding of that person, because if we forget about that person, it's very easy to unconsciously fall back into those behaviors. Yeah. And so I'll start with you, Stephán. Why do you think it's important that we start here to really look backwards before we look forwards?
I think it's very easy to forget, where I came from, which a lot of people quickly remember or refuse to let go of, but it's how far I've come. So unless I remember where I was, that I can go, when things get hard or difficult or painful, and I may want to give up or I want to lash out, I can remember, wait a minute, I'm not the same person I was 5, 10, 20 years ago. So it gives me more strength to move forward and through the pain and not try to go around it or push it away or lock it up. Right?
Well said. Mike.
Well, the main thing that comes to me is blind spots, right? I don't know what I don't know, but there's going to be some things through any transformational experience that I learn about myself and I wake up to that I didn't see before. And so I'll start with blind spots, but also just being able to acknowledge there's something that I want to change. And it doesn't mean that things aren't going okay. I mean, when I look at transformation, at least in the New Warrior Training Adventure, I tell people that you're either in a place of crisis or stasis. And those are usually the reasons men come to a training, or usually why any person would want to transform, is I'm looking for that next step, or there's something that's not working for me.
Well, and I think it's really important to also, like you said, Stephán, is where have I come from? Because it's very easy when we're climbing. I mean, generally, I think we attract, especially in the Mankind Project, we attract men who may measure themselves based on their metrics, their success, whatever they're working towards. And a big part of our work is helping giving men a mission, meaning there is something I need to do, actions I need to take to achieve said action. And so on that climb, it's easy to forget to stop and look around and realize, holy moly, look where I have come from. The work that has been done thus far, because I don't know about, well, you guys, whether it's parenting, whether it's professional, whether it's in a relationship, sometimes I feel like an infant on my journey, a white belt all of a sudden in whatever it is that I'm doing because of my mood, my energy, whatever is happening in the moment. But stopping and going, okay, maybe I need to give myself a little pat on the back and go, some real work has been done to get to this point, even to show up to some of these trainings, which for some men is the most terrifying thing they can ever do.
Well, if I'm not looking at where I'm at inside, not just where I'm at in my life, but my internal life. And I think that's where a lot of people, when they finally come to something like Mike was saying about how did you say it?
Stasis, crisis.
Stasis or crisis. Stasis, for more clarity for me, it's like, okay, nothing is necessarily wrong, but I know something is not right. Like my life is, it's going, rent's paid, the car works, I have a job, but something doesn't quite feel right. And that may be stasis for some people. It's not necessarily a crisis, because I think sometimes I hear stasis, I think nothing's moving. No, my life is going forward,
Yeah.
but something is not quite right. I'm not happy. Nothing's wrong. And so I think those kind of things have taking a moment and stopping and going in that internal world. And as I was growing up as a man, that's not something we did. That's not something you look at. Not something I talk about. As long as you got a job, food, rent's paid, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right. And I think this is the time that people are taking time to stop and go, okay, where am I going? Why am I going? Do I even want to go?
Nice. I want to just put something that Stephán said right from the very beginning that I was like, holy crap, big, huge aha. So I know where I came from, and I know the shit that I went through, and I know the pain that I had, and maybe there's some part of me that wants to heal from that and get away from that and move away from that right into a different thing. But there's this other thing, the stuff that I was refusing to let go of in my life that I have to look back when I can get 20 years later, over 20 years in the work, and see, oh yeah, there it is right there. There's that remnant of that thing that I don't want to let go of that still pops up in me sometimes. Right. And then just from all of what we've said, there's a perspective, right? If I'm on the path and I'm walking, it's like, wow, it doesn't look like it's an endless desert. It doesn't look like I'm going very far. But if you put me at a perspective a quarter mile away, I'm moving. I'm making progress. One of my mentors said, I'm trying to get to that point where I know when I look back, there's no way I'm going back there.
Yeah.
Past the point of no return.
Yeah.
Might as well keep going and keep growing.
When we get there about integration, that's what trips me up 99% of the time is I picked something back up that I said I was letting go of.
I know when I started my transformational journey 20 years ago, I was lost. I was scared. And it's easy for me today to be like, man, I'm still scared. I'm still kind of lost in some areas. The difference is how I'm more familiar with asking for help. That's the big difference for me.
Nice.
But yeah, I know where I was. And so, yeah.
Only you, Mike. Just you. None of the rest of us were there. It's just you.
Yes. Remember where you were when you started the journey.
Another thing I've witnessed in men coming out of new warrior trainings, these early transformational experiences, is there's this momentum. Like there's this spark. It's almost combustion. Like, boom, I'm out of here. Like I'm not in Kansas anymore. I'm not that same person. And it's cool to see. It's like, yeah, man, good on you. You got that fire in your belly. You got that passion. But it's also can be very reckless, I've seen, because it's like, I'm burning everything in my past and just, this is me now. And it's like, dude, if this is you now, you've been this for like 48 hours. Give it a second to integrate. Let's give it some time to sink in, because guess what? When you go home, the external world is not ready for this, right? The external world does not care that you've just been through this transformation. Sure, some of your relationships and the people that supported you in going to the weekend, there's going to be an impact there. They care. But broadly speaking, you have zero control of how the external world is going to react to this transformation or meet you with where you are right now. Have you witnessed that?
I think you should tell us a story about how that showed up for you, Brandon.
Oh, Boysen. Okay. Yeah, sure. Maybe I spot it because I got it. But yeah, like I've been guilty of that for sure. And it's this feeling of either learning or reminding myself of who I was before school and, my family or whatever experiences kind of put me into a box in a way, or where I put myself into a box and limited myself. So it's kind of like, it's a new skill and it's exciting to have it back again and have that fire or, be connected in a healthy way to my inner child. But it can be very reckless to just start steamrolling every other facet of life from that place without letting that energy kind of come down and regulate to a more sustainable place.
Yeah. In the world of integrating, I know that any transformation that takes place, is so super exciting. It's just inspiring. And I know that whether I've led a training for MKP or elsewhere, if people are inspired, they're motivated right now. I want to do something. I want to change. I want to grow. And how do we keep it sustainable? So the actual transformational experience feels so good. So for anybody that's listening to this that has just gone through a transformation, hang on to that feeling right now. Know that it's going to fade, but use the motivation not to just pump up and try to do everything right now, but how can you right now make some plan so that it does hold? And that's really what this conversation is about.
I feel
Absolutely.
like when any big change happens, I think why I go into maybe this aggro, it's an extreme word, aggro, positioning is because I want to make sure, A, I don't lose it, B, that it was real, and C, I want some confirmation outside of me that they see something that's different. So when all that's operating, I'm not actually fully being inside for the integration to happen because I'm still looking for some level of validation. I'm praying that it was, like I said, real, because I'm going, did that happen? Did that not happen? Was that real? So I think for me, when I've learned any big transformation, whether I do a yoga retreat for a week, whatever it is, I write whatever I need to hear for myself. And usually it starts with, that happened and it was real. It's the first two things I usually write. And the third one is just for me, right? Just so that whatever I'm thinking I need someone outside of me to say or do or reflect, I can reflect that for myself. So that's the first thing. Then, as Mike says, what is concrete I can do right now? And it doesn't mean I call up somebody and tell them how great it was. It's what can I do next? Something usually simple. What can I do next that will remind me what I just done, where I'm going, and what I want to achieve? And that may not be a thing like, oh, I want to make $1 million. It can be like, what is my mission? Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be super stellar or super phenomenal for it to be believable. Just something specific that reminds me of who I am, what I did, and where I'm going. Those simple things, it's like going to the gym. I can go once a month, or I can go once every other day. I can go 10 minutes a day. In 3 months, 10 minutes a day, I'm going to look way better than I did.
Yes.
So why do I need to go 2 hours? Why do I need to tell everybody I'm going to the gym? Right? People will notice 3-6 months later if I've gone 10 minutes a day.
Yeah. And that's a really good point to elucidate is, although you may feel it right now, it's like we learned this in my time in fitness, is like you're going to see it before others will. Or it depends on the psyche of the individual. Sometimes other people notice it because others may not recognize their own transformation. But yeah, it's going to take consistency for it to stick, especially for those of you who are in committed relationships or are responsible, for children. They have only known you as a way of being, or many different iterations perhaps. But before whatever transformational experience you just had, they only knew you as one thing. And you come in looking, feeling different. And I'm telling you, like with the new warrior training, men will be like, I never got a haircut, but people are saying to me, did I get a haircut? Because something's different. Their shoulders are back, their chin is up, their chest is up, just whatever it is, even just energetically, people can feel it. But that takes consistency. It takes, like Stephán said, like creating practices or rituals or something that can keep that work alive and keep the fire lit. Mike?
Well, the two scary things about transformation, you just mentioned one of them, is that the people know me as whatever this is. And so now they're going to know me as something different, and some of them are going to like it, some of them aren't. So that's one big fear, and it's real. The other big fear that's real is, am I going to go back to what I was? Am I actually, like Stephán said, is this real? Okay, yes, it's real. I wrote it down. I know that actually happened. But can I keep going forward, or am I going to fall back into what I wanted to leave behind? Those are the two fears that I know of.
Beautiful. I'm reminded of the kind of yoga thing that my wife used to teach about in terms of expansion, contraction, and that is just an incredibly natural flow in state change, right? So I've had this elevated state, I've had this transformational, expansive experience. You don't expand and stay expanded permanently, right? You might up level, you might literally up level your whole life, but that state of expanded consciousness, you're going to contract, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like the recognition to slow down, have grace with yourself, have grace with the people in your life, have, just really extend some nurturing kindness, loving kindness to yourself when, I said on that weekend that I was never going to do that again. And look, I just did it again. Don't throw away the whole experience. Don't throw away everything you've learned. Then put into a place like, what's the next step?
You said the contraction is okay. I would say it's actually necessary.
Necessary.
That's
yes.
where that's the cocoon part where I get to regulate, figure out, understand. So then when I step out, it's fully me. The first part, I feel like it's a projection. If I was to project myself outside of myself, that's what I just went through. Then the cocooning is me stepping into the projection that is actually true.
Ooh.
So it comes together. So that part is necessary, right?
Yeah. It's so different from a fake it till you make it approach. It's like trying on a bit of clothing that's outside of perhaps the conservative way that you've worn clothing previously. It's these micro tests of really leaning in and trusting that transformation. Like, oh, part of I came away from the weekend is my mission is to speak my truth. Well, I've been withholding everything I've wanted to say for so long. Right. So how can I start in small little ways? It's not go home and, tell your partner like, I've been waiting 20 years to finally give it to you. No, it's just starting small, honey. It hurts my feeling when A or B. So,
this is why we need support, right? This is why no transformational experience should happen. No integrative experience should happen without support.
And so this is a really important point to make because we see this on our weekends in the Mankind Project. When at the end we sit with men and we kind of help them with the integration. Hey, here's kind of maybe what you might be expecting going home. What are your partners thinking about this experience? But then one thing that always really moves me is who here isn't going home to anyone? Who's here going home to just their apartment alone? And so what would be your tips to those men? Obviously, we just said one of them, and we can illuminate that more, which is find community, be in space with other men. But what for those, for those who do live solitary lives and maybe don't have others in their lives to witness their transformation and edify the change? What would you say to them?
Well, someone who does go home to not even a plant. What I typically say is that love yourself in a way that makes you feel whole. So I usually after every weekend will have sushi because I just love it, right? I either take a nice long bath or shower, and I mean just where I can just sit. It's not even just I love being in water, so just being in water. So if that's swimming for you, whatever it is that something feels like I'm being held when I'm with water, right? So held that, I usually call someone I'm close to, and I don't talk about it's just to be stupid and silly. That's the connection. I'm not saying, oh, I did this. You should, nope. It's literally just fun stuff, right? It's short, so I don't expel everything I got. It's just that little bit of connection. And then I watch something that's usually really funny, and I may have seen it several times, and I go to bed early. It's a way to just love myself. And when I do that, I don't need any validation outside. I don't need someone to say, hold me. And that's going to look different for everyone, whatever that is. And some people, it's really sad for me, is some people don't know what that is. They don't know what they can do for themselves to hold themselves. So they're not have to go somewhere, go to a bar, call up somebody they don't really want to talk to, but they'll give them that. So that's what I typically do after a weekend. Ways that will make me feel loved and it's still healthy for me.
Yes.
And then especially go to bed early because my dreams are active, my body's active, and get up early the next day.
So let's speak to those people who you said don't know what that is, right? What I would say is if you are listening to this, you had an experience. Something happened that is worthwhile enough to keep the ball up in the air, to keep it moving. And so because it may be recent, it may have been a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months or years ago that you had this experience, can you at least think back on moments?
Anchoring, yes.
Moments that were magical, moments where you found that joy. I got my talisman in the Mankind Project back in 2016. My rookie staffing, which is my first staffing, you do after going through the weekend, and you get to see it from the other side. There was a moment that was so special and so magical. I remember grabbing my talisman and going, if I could bottle this energy, if I could bottle this and keep this with me for the rest of if I could sell this, I would be a billionaire. Like, it is that good. And now my talisman hangs on my mirror of my car. And all I got to do is just reach out and just hold on to it and give it a grab, because that energy is there. Even for all of you who may not be into the woo-woo like I am, it just intellectually, there is the neurons in your brain can activate the same way when you go back in your mind to those experiences. And so what is it from your weekend that was magical, that stopped you in your tracks, that gave you a sense of solace or love or joy or whatever the missing piece was? There are ways that you can integrate that into daily practices.
Who else has got an anchoring thing? That I love that. And I think being able to anchor the experiences are super important. What you don't see if you're just listening to the podcast, I've got big rocks on my desk back here from that I have carried either down mountains or up mountains or from places. Transformational experiences, right? Literally highs. And the thing is to reach down and actually pick up a piece of it and carry it back with me and then have it so that I can go put my hand on that and say, yeah, that's from Mineral King. That's from the High Sierras. I remember where I picked that up.
That's so interesting.
Know the experience.
Most of the time I try to anchor something, and it's a feeling in my body, right? So that it's always with me, and that I can do something to reactivate that anchor, to go back to that place, that time. So that's interesting that you got these big rocks sitting there with you.
I love that. I used to have more things where I can see it. I do have visual things, but mostly I just have to think of a moment and it's there. It's locked in me. And that's taken practice of, I believe it happened, what happened, and knowing that so I can move forward. But before, having something was beneficial in my hand, in my pocket, on a wall. Yeah.
So I don't know about you all. In my experience with these experiences, whether it was a lodge, whether it was plant medicine, which we don't do on our weekends. I'm talking about a separate experience here. But when I get to share those stories with others, I get to go back to those places.
Nice.
And it makes me think about, bees. Bees are amazing. Like let's do more for the bees, to keep bees around and keep bees doing what bees do. When honeybees go out and scout different locations or beds of flowers, it's a huge risk because they're going far outside their territory. And say they come across a bunch of white clover and that no other bees are around. They zip back and they have to dance for the rest of the hive to convince the hive that there is something worthwhile over there. And bees only have so much energy they can expend, right? It could be death, just sit there and dance, all right? I haven't died nearly dancing since I was 22 and consuming illicits in nightclubs. All right. So these bees, it's on the line for them, and they have to convince others about what they saw. Now, what I'm not saying is be evangelical and, tell the whole world about your experience, but who are the ones that matter? The ones that know you? Or where are the spaces where others have been through similar experiences and you can tell those stories? and keep them alive. So I think this is where we can transition our conversation into environments, spaces, groups, where we can keep this transformation alive. Mike, I'll start with you. 120 plus new warrior trainings. I mean, that's unreal, because these weekends, a lot goes into even making them happen. It's 4 full days for the staff. It's a full 48 hours for the initiates. That's a huge chunk of life to be witnessing these things. So what do you see as strategies that really stick for people to kind of keep it alive, to still want to be a part of these transformations and keep the work going?
Well, I mentioned support, and I think it's really important to stay in the work, for one, whatever that work is. So, I say it's easy to go back to sleep. I don't know that I could go back to sleep. So I don't even know if that's
Not anymore.
easy work.
Yeah.
But what I know is, since I mentioned one of the fears is that I'll go back to the way that I was. And since that's a fear that was real for me, and I know that it's real for somebody listening to this podcast that just had a transformational experience. So how can you surround yourself with people that are wanting to continue in growth work, continue in being better versions of themselves? Because that is the one thing that guarantees you will continue on that path. And then the other thing, I can't stress enough how important accountability is for personal growth. That I think it's the number one tool. So I just usually, as far as bringing together support and staying in the work, I find an accountability buddy and say, listen, this is what I want to do right now, and I need you to hold me to it, or at least ask me about it so I can hold myself to it. So that's what I would say. That's what I did say.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Well, one thing I want to say is I have more and more respect for bees the more and more I learn about them. I mean, I know they're necessary, but I mean, always putting in the line. If they sting you, they know it's death. Like everything they do, they go 100. Everything they do, they go 100. For me, I don't, as someone who loves to express, write, support, talk, I always make sure I keep something for me. Whatever transformational weekend, no matter what I talk about, I keep something that's just for me. And that's the way that I keep whatever experience I have pure and alive, because I haven't just spilled everything. So that's one. Two, I definitely agree with Mike, being around people, but it can be people who are not necessarily, I think, doing self-help work, trainings, whatever they are, can be sort of cultish, where I do my work and I can't be around anybody who doesn't do their work. I know 2 or 3 people who are really close to me who I would swear they've done 6 or 7 different trainings and they've done none of those. But they practice what that is. They are doing their work even though they haven't been through anything. And so I'm really making sure my core people around me, we are all about truth. And I think that's about going back to sleep, is when I start lying to myself and everybody else. That's going back to sleep. I may still be working on stuff, but that's my version. And everyone, I think, has a specific version to them, where I call it, first I'm nodding off, then I'm taking naps, and then I'm going in some deep slumbers. And those are the things that scare me. Because like Mike, I don't think I can ever go back to sleep, but I do know I can take a long vacation. And that's what scares me. So I think it's making sure I'm around people who will notice that.
Yeah.
And then tell me. Because there are friends who love me, they won't tell me. But I know people who'll be like, wait, what is that? What's going on? Right? So it's about the people. It's about knowing my specific thing that will put me to sleep. And then it's about just committing. And that's in anything, commitment. Yeah. There's no going back. The door is closed.
Yeah. Boysen, you've been sitting in men's circles for 2+ decades now.
Yes.
And you've shared with me many times that you have men that love and care about you enough to call you on your BS.
Yes.
When it comes up. And so, yeah, why do you keep going to men's group? Because you work in men's stuff all the time. Just for those who, Boysen's not going to like that I say this, Boysen's kind of the dude at MKP that really makes things happen. And a lot of men do. Yes, kudos to a lot of people, but Boysen is immensely responsible for a lot of the amazing things happening in the organization. And all I know is when I'm too much in this work, I want to be away from men's work. I want to kind of go like be a doofus with my friends who never talk about this stuff. But you have been so committed to this work for half your life now. What impact have these groups had on your life?
Wow, that's crazy. Half my life. Thank you. I never do anything alone, and that's cool. So what do I get out of still going to men's group? What you just said is part of it, is that I've got guys in my life who know me well enough to say, hey, Boysen, I love you, and I'm not going to let you continue to yourself that way. What are you doing? And a lot of the times these days, that's like, what are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing? What are you saying no to in your life? What are you doing? You know, if I weren't here recording this podcast with you, where I would be tonight is getting tacos in East Hampton with probably 35 people, families, kids from babies to teenagers and adults from my men's group. Right.
You love tacos.
And we would hang, right? La Veracruzana. Shouts to La Veracruzana. And then I also have relationships, right? So like one of my great relationships right now is a guy named Mike in my group. And Mike and I just resonate on this absolutely crass level, so that we text each other on a regular basis, and we give each other shit, and we encourage each other and hold each other accountable to the things that we're committed to right now in our lives. Right. And like, that's cool. It's cool to have. So these are people who, I work in men's work all the time. And I also got friends. Mm-hmm. These are my buds. These are guys that know me and laugh at me.
I think the difference though is the quality of friends. So whether it's guys from your group or, you know, I like to think that I am the 5 closest people to me. That if I'm hanging out with, you know, a bunch of drunks, chances are pretty good I got a drink in my hand, you know? And so for those that have just transformed their lives in a great way, and you're listening to this conversation, you may have to do an inventory of the people that you're hanging out with. And either try maybe to encourage them to change, but more importantly, do an inventory of who you're hanging out with and gravitate towards those that you want your life to be more like, whatever that means. You don't have to think the same. You don't have to have the same career, but the quality of people that you want to be, surround yourself with that quality of people.
I work in elementary. I just started teaching kids, and I see it in kids, and we still do it as adults. Whoever they hang out with, if I have a quiet kid who does everything right and he starts hanging out with kids who are yelling out and hitting, that kid becomes those kids. It's so easy to see who they are and what they do by who they hang out with. And it's the same thing as you said, as adults, I act like, I can do that. I call it, I can peekaboo. If I get a bunch of people who want to be drunk all day, every day, I can come in and say, hey, hang out a couple hours, have a couple drinks. But if I'm doing that every weekend, and why? Why am I there? Mm-hmm. At the same, there's nothing wrong with them. I love them. We have a great time, but I peekaboo. I don't move in. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I judge that to be, you have a strong sense of self and values. And whether that's come from the work or you had this before you got into men's work, you know yourself enough to know that you can have fun and have a couple drinks and hang out. But that's not the environment that you want to consistently be in for your goals or where you're steering your life right now.
Oh, I may want to.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm gonna say it. My thing is so true. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I want to be out in the club every weekend and just do all that. And be it raves all day, every day? Yes. Oh, 100%. I'm not going to lie. Yes, that sounds awesome.
Glow stick, whistle.
But there's been a part of my life where I did that, and that wasn't, I knew that's not what was ultimately what I wanted. So I'm not going to lie. Do I want to eat all day and sit at home and watch TV every day, all day? Oh, yes, 100%. 100%. But after I do that for a week, I'm going to be like, it's not working. So
nice.
So I'm not going to go back. But I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I would love to just do drugs. If there was no repercussions, do drugs and get drunk and sit on the island, 100%. 100%. Ultimately, I'm going to go, yeah, this is boring. I don't want to do this.
I'm going to lean in from the
friends that are going to say, Stephán, what the hell?
Oh, no, they're going to come and go. Yeah, they're going to drag me kicking and screaming. And as I say, thank you. But then I start yelling and screaming, thank you.
No, I'm just going to pull up a chair next to you on the beach. That's what I'm like. For a while anyway, for a couple of days. I'm going to come from the other side on this too. Like, as long as I've been in men's work, I've been in a committed relationship to the woman who's my wife longer. And so I also want to say one of the things that has been an anchor for me in men's work is learning how, first of all, to not make it her fault. Don't make it your partner's fault. It ain't your spouse's fault. It ain't your parents' fault. It ain't your childhood's fault. It ain't the shit that you went through when you were little, right? It's you. You get to choose right now, today, what you're doing. And I have learned over time that I can bring this to my wife because she's been with me through all of this transition to say, hey, look, I know when I'm doing this, that I'm having this impact either on me or on you or on our family or on our kids. I know when I'm doing this, I'm having this impact. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm committing to make some change. I want you to check me when you see me doing this so that it's really in my home, right? So that I'm building the kind of environment that I want to be living in. That's not the lowest bar for me. That's a higher bar for me and who I want to be in the world.
That's my biggest gift. My biggest gift I got from doing this type of work, whether it's MKP, Mankind Project, or other work, is I've been able to uncover my map. Like the map has been inside since birth, the map, right? Knew it really good when I was 2, really great by the time I was 5, and then start listening to everybody else, and everybody else tell me not to do and don't do, and then I lose my map. I know a couple points, but I lose the map. So this has been able to get all the dirt and the sand and the pain and all that. Doesn't mean it goes away, but now I get to see my map clearly. Sometimes a little fuzzy in certain areas or certain corners, or I'm doing things that so I can make it fuzzy, so I can get away with doing things. But I can see the map, and now I can go, oh, this is how I want to live my life. And now I can connect all the dots. So when I'm angry for some reason, I used to think I'm just angry because this person cut me off. No, that person cutting me off didn't make me angry, right? So, this is why, and it helps me be able to regulate, support myself, support others, know which way to go. That's what has been most beneficial. Right? I get to open up all the doors and see. And that's beautiful. Don't have all the answers, but at least I get to see what's there and figure out how I want to put it together and decide what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike, you said this in our first conversation. We all got together to kind of have an idea of where we wanted this conversation to go. And Mike, you said, this isn't a one and done thing. Right? This isn't a transaction where you paid X amount of dollars, you did the thing, you showed up, you got the t-shirt, done. And what Stephán is saying, which I'm interpreting as the hero's journey continues. The journey continues. Your map is there. It's always been there, but you're discovering more and more adventures and avenues to dive into and go into. And they come with challenge. They come with fear. They come with transformation. They come with letting go and grief and all these other things. And having been in this work, I'm the most junior of all of us here, 9 years. It only gets better. It only gets more exciting. And I'll say this, for those who maybe sit more in a more logical space, you are creating new data when you show up as this person that you know you are.
Yeah, right.
You're creating new data. However old you are, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, however old you are, there's data that suggests that you are a different way. And your relation, your family, your friends, the external world is going to use that data against you to try and keep you in that old place. Or you're going to listen to that signal and sit yourself down back in that place. But it's this commitment to the adventure and the journey going forward. We call it the work because that's what it is. It's hard work. But it's continuing left foot, right foot, and creating that new data, those wins, those little things. It could be small things like Stephán, just, having the bath or watching the fun movie or, meditating, whatever anchors you to that new reality. It's not a sexy look. If you look at it on a graph, it is not sexy to look at. It is slow. It is gradual. It is 1% on 1% on 1% on 1% that compounds over time. But you will never look at life the same again because you inherently will have transformed because of the work.
So let me say this. So I love how you say it's more data. And if I'm using mine as like, I'm uncovering more on my map. Oh, I didn't know this was over there. Yeah. And other people say, you don't need to go over there. That's fine. No, but I'm going to go check this out. That's the new data, right? Do I decide to go over there or not? Also, for those who may not have come from a perspective, have not had a lot, it may not look as ugly. And I get it for some people. I can see it, that pain, this. But also, if you've never had money and then you get $10, then you get $100, then you get $1,000. So from my perspective, I have more. Even if it's just one more dollar. That's awesome. That is awesome. So I think it's also perspective. And when you said, yes, it does get better, to me, it's also painful because I get to see not just what I'm going through, but I get to see where I was. And I'm like, ooh, I did that to people. Oh, I was doing it to myself. Dang, that's the pain. Yes, the pain of experience, but it's the pain of now seeing it. And the beauty for me is now I get to go beyond it. Yeah. Where before I felt stuck, trapped, locked, lost, controlled by. So I don't want to give anyone what perspective they're going to come from because everyone I judge have a different perspective. But what it does, it just gives me more visibility.
Thank you.
The epiphanies are what feel good. Like the changes, the looking back and see, like that feels good. Growth work sucks. Let's not candy coat it to anybody, right? Like, it's hard, man. How many times I've just had snot running down my face, like, I don't want to look at that. It's hard.
Yeah, that's legit.
That's why, as far as how to keep this going, stay in the work, surround yourself with good people, tell the damn truth, like quit lying.
Yeah. This is a good opportunity to segue into what are your pro tips? Right? What are the things that, faceless, nameless people you've never met that are going through a transformational experience? What are you saying to them? If you could just pull anything out of your pocket, it could be from this conversation or something we haven't shared. Who wants to start?
I'm going to go with this. No, go, Mike, and then I'll go.
I'm just thinking, know what your values are. Like so many people, I mean, what's really, really important to you? What do you value? And don't just spend 5 minutes with that exercise because that's a difficult exercise, but really understand what you value because the whole world might be trying to tell you what they value and trying to sway you. And so get real with yourself about what is important to you and then just cherish that, man.
Nice.
What you got, Boysen?
You kind of said it, right? It's hard. Cry more. Cry more. And learn to not be attached to your crying. Right? Like I go to men's group and just allow myself to feel the grief of whatever is happening, allow the tears to flow, allow the energy to move through my body. And recognize that anything that I'm upset about is how much I care.
Yeah. So
all the stuff I get angry about, I care. All the stuff I'm resentful about, I care. All the stuff I'm afraid of, I care. And that's beautiful and so human. Cry more.
Stefan?
One, believe. No, it sounds, but believe. Believe in what you've done, where you've come from. Believe in what you want. Believe in what you've experienced. Believe. Remember, I always have to remind myself, I'm human. I'm a child walking in a grown man's body. I'm human. And remember to forget. That was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
When I first wake up, this is today. Doesn't mean I'm absolved if I did something really crappy to somebody, whatever, but that was yesterday. If I want to keep drudging up what happened when I was 7, it happened. I believe it happened. I know it happened. It gives me data, but that I'm not there. That doesn't have any control unless I give it, right? The relationships I have, there's people I'm going to know for the rest of my life, and they do not dictate who I am and what I feel. I am in complete control of what happens inside me if I choose. I have complete control over everything inside of me if I choose. And for a recovering control freak, recovering, that's the one thing I do. I absolutely have complete control of that. So when I remember that, I remind myself when something happens, I gave it away. I don't have to be mad at myself, but to tell the truth, I gave that away. I gave my power away. I gave this away so that I can always maintain that I have the control over that and I get to depict where I want to go. And that gives me a lot of solace when I get to choose. No job is keeping me. I'm staying there because I want the money or I want this. No person is keeping me. I want it because I feel like I'll be sad if I lose it. Whatever it is, the truth is, it's me. Always and forever. And thank goodness.
Another pro tip I would throw out there is this: just to know that you deserve and that you're worthy of whatever it is that you seek. Because
100.
if whatever life that you're going for, and I can make this an I statement, whatever life I'm going for, if I don't believe that I deserve that or that I'm worthy of that, that is where the work begins for me, is to first shift my perspective to know damn well I deserve that I'm worthy of that. So there's a pro tip for you, Brandon.
Interestingly, this could be reframed a different way, the question, but I think we would have got the same answer, is what would you tell yourself if you could go back in time in your transformational experience?
Yeah. 100%.
And I'll tell you, mine will be the same answer. And I hate that I got to follow all of you. That was brilliant. But for me, I want to be a through point for the information that I learn. So I want to learn it, I want to do it, and then I want to teach it. And that's what keeps this work exciting for me, is the second I go through an experience like that, I immediately am like, how can I teach this? How can I teach this to others? And that can often be me bypassing doing the work, but still in a way it keeps my hands on it, because it's like, I'm going to integrate it more intellectually, emotionally. And I know if I want people to trust what I'm saying, I have to integrate it myself. And that's where I'm grateful for my wife, because we'll do relationship retreats together, or we'll do separate retreats, and we'll come back together. And it's like, oh, I can't wait to teach you this thing that I learned. And then it becomes, it compounds.
But that's part of the integration, though, right? I learn what I teach. So yeah, good on you, man, for teaching that.
Yeah. Babe, I did this. I learned this really great stuff about how you should stop X, Y, Z. Let me teach you about it.
Yeah, no, not that.
No, not that. Not that.
One thing that I think is really amazing about the Mankind Project, though, as far as integration and what we're talking about here, is how they offer this primary integration training right after the transformational experience. In fact, these days it's included in the price of the experience, of the transformational experience. So it's, as far as a one and done, no, it's not a one and done, but it's a one price, and you get to launch yourself into the integration, which I think is a very mature way for an organization to go about offering a transformational experience.
Well, I can tell you, my weekend was profoundly impactful for me. But my pit training is where like my real work occurred. And I didn't think that. I didn't expect that. It was really powerful.
PIT stands for primary integration training.
Primary integration.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There
So
you go.
good.
Yeah, jargon, the inside language. So the way I explain it is on my New Warrior training, I got a bunch of tools, like a big tool chest. And I don't know if anyone's ever done woodwork. The first time you use a mallet and a chisel, it's ugly.
Ugly.
And the primary integration training is learning to use the tools in a more sustainable, repeatable way that can make it more a part of integrated into my life going forward. So for those of you, you may be listening to this episode having just come off your weekend, know that the pit comes with a ticket. And some men, sadly, choose not to do it. And I think that's a real shame because there is so much gold.
And if you're listening to this and you did your integrate or your training 20 years ago and you've never integrated, then man, it's not too late.
Do it.
Yeah.
Jump in.
Come on.
Yeah.
Totally.
So cool. Well, final comments before we check out from this awesome conversation.
Yeah. My final comment. I've been doing this for 20 years, but I would not be the man that I am today had I not gone through a transformational experience 20 years ago, integrated it, surrounded myself, did all the things we're saying here today. I would not be the man. I wouldn't be on this damn podcast had I, Right. So yeah, that feels really good. And thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. Stephán.
This may come out weird, but I would say no one can love me more than I can love myself. And I think that's what I've learned through all the different transformational weekends I've done is no one can love me more than I love myself. And I'm worth it, and I'm okay with that, and I'm happy about it, and I'm good with it. But it took time. It took time because I flipped it for so long for it to come outside, so that way I would know it was real. And that's why I say the number one thing is belief. Belief in me, belief in what I want, belief in where I'm going, belief who I put myself around. And once that belief is cemented, that's one thing I know 100% true about me. I am good. And I think that's what people struggle with. I know I am good at my core. So now that I have that belief, it's so much easier for me to do all the things when it gets painful, when it gets hard, when I don't want to do it. Is this true to me? So start with the belief and then start with your loving yourself. And everything else, as you continue to do the work, to start to fall in place.
Boysen.
There, and here's for you guys out there. Here's for you listeners out there who just listened to what Stephán said and said, "Well, he doesn't know me. He doesn't know what an awful person I am. He doesn't know how much I'm not worth loving. He doesn't know how unworthy I am of being here." Yeah, bullshit. And being around the work for as long as we have heard and seen some stuff.
Yo.
And men are lovable and beautiful. And you are too.
Everyone is lovable and beautiful.
Everyone.
Beautiful. Well, I'll just wrap it up with this. I would not have anything I have today if it wasn't for this work. I wouldn't be in the marriage I'm in. I wouldn't have my child. I wouldn't have this house. I wouldn't have the opportunities I have in my life. I wouldn't have the friendships that I have here. 2 of the men present here were standing next to me when I got married. And 2 other men standing there are in this work. It's so cool. It's so cool. And it continues to bless my life. And my wife will tell you first and foremost that no one's a bigger fan of this work than her.
Yep.
And this is not me stroking anything in mine. She will tell you she has never felt more safe and seen and heard in a relationship. And I didn't bring this stuff to the table. I wasn't born with it.
Yeah.
I learned how to do that. And it just continues to enrich my life. And I hope and trust that as long as any of you listening out there, stay in whatever your work is, uncovering whatever your map is, surrounding yourself with whomever it is that fills your cup and reminds you of where you're going and the wins along the way and pick you up when you're smacked down by life. Whatever that looks like, I trust that you will experience the same.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. There you go.
Going.
Thanks.
So I want to give the mic to Mike Patterson. For those who joined us today listening to this wonderful conversation, how can they find out more about you and what you do?
You can go to leaderchampions.com, or you can shoot me an email at mike@leaderchampions.com.
Fantastic. I will have links in the show notes. And Stephán.
Oh, I have to give you an email because I got too many websites somewhere. So I'm doing something. So I'll send you an email and you can put it in the links.
Sure. If anything that Stephán or Mike said that resonated with you, you want to get in contact with them, having been coached by these men, they have immense, just how many trainings between the two of you, immense knowledge around the topic we've just had, and perhaps coaching may be something that will benefit you in your journey going forward, a more one-on-one approach. I know it's helped me immensely through that journey. Boysen, this has been the Mankind Podcast, where we
prove week on week that there is indeed more than one way to be a man.
What do you say, men? Have we done that today?
Yes.
Many ways.
Heck, yeah, many ways. Lots of love. Thank you for all of you who join us each and every week. This is made possible because of you. We will see you next week.
Peace out.
This has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. We have been your host, Boysen Hodgson, and myself, Brandon Clift, and we want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. If you want to find out more about today's guests and support them in their mission, you can find links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, we are always grateful for a rating and review of the show on iTunes. Now, above all else, we've got to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you have made it possible for us to let men all over the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if something in this episode has touched you, then perhaps it is the call to action to get involved in men's work. With live trainings happening constantly and in-person trainings happening all over the world, the Mankind Project definitely has something for you. Now, if you've enjoyed the music in this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to check out Jim Donovan and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. And lastly, just know, what it means to me to be a man is completely different than what it means for you. That is the beauty of this journey. So if you are looking for guidance, support, and community as you begin to unpack and dive deeper into your men's work journey, then you know where to find us. Same place, same time, next week. Lots of love. We'll see you then.
Hey, it's Boysen here with the Mankind Podcast. We are closing in on 100 5-star reviews of this podcast, and we have a goal. Brandon and I want to get to 250 5-star reviews. So help us out, will you? Please go to the Mankind Podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. Thank you. Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.